Welcome to Jewels of the Trade, the channel for spreading accurate information on jade and gemstones. Today, I'm here with Matt and Nikki from Jade West, one of the world's largest producers of Nephrite Jade. Welcome, guys.
Thank you for having us.
So let's hit the ground running to clear up any confusion right off the bat. What is Nephrite Jade?
Nephrite Jade is the toughest stone that we have on Earth. It's an interlocking fibrous structure. If you look at jade under a microscope, Nephrite Jade, you'll see it's kind of like feathered and intertwined like this, which makes it very tough. Whereas if you look at Jadeite, it's more of a crystalline structure, so it's like more straighter. And if you look at the outside of it and kind of shine a light over it or move it around against the light, it kind of looks like there's little like sugar at the top, or like it's been salted or something.
Nephrite is like the OG jade.
Yeah. It's got some history all around the world. In New Zealand, it was used for weapons and prize things. In China, was held, the famous emperors had it. In Canada, we don't have too much of a history because we've got huge boulders. And back in the day, you couldn't work a big boulder into tools.
How long has there been a jade trade in British Columbia?
It was recognized when they were building the railroads along the Fraser River, and Chinese workers noticed it. They're picking up little cobbles and bringing it back to China. So that's when it was kind of first recognized. And then it wasn't really mined until around 1960s and into the 70s when deposits were discovered at Ogden Mountain and then some up in Dease Lake.
When did y'all start mining? When did Jade West come to be?
My dad's been doing it. He has a college job, and that would have been in the 70s he started.
Mid-70s, kind of around their mid-late 70s.
Yeah, but other people were doing it starting in the 60s. But yeah, Jade West started kind of in the 80s.
For everyone who's watching, Nikki's dad is Kirk Makepeace, who is super famous in our industry and in the jade world. In fact, he was just recently published in Lotus Gemology's Jade, a Gemologist Guide. And you've probably seen him published in a whole bunch of other stuff as well. He's even mentioned in the really iconic 1987 National Geographic article on jade written by Fred Ward, which really kind of changed like the West's views towards jade.
Well, it was hard back in the day when he first started. He was trying to find a market. There was a couple companies and carvers that got together in Canada, like Lyle Sapel and Deborah Wilson. They had a studio in Vancouver. There was too much jade for just them. So my dad started exporting it over to Taiwan. You couldn't import into China at that time.
So it's truly an international industry. So I'm actually wearing some pieces from Jade West. People who watch my videos a lot know that I mention them a lot. Tell me about BC Jade, which is, it's British Columbia, Nephrite Jade. It kind of has this iconic look to it.
Each one of our mine has different characteristics too. At our Ogden Mine, for instance, like there's the dark Ogden Jade.
I don't know how well the quality is going to show up, but this is like, it might just be reflecting on the screen.
I can see myself.
How dark this piece is, right? So we call it midnight green. We'll have a certain mountain or a mountain range, and it can have numerous deposits all over it sticking out. And each deposit can kind of yield a completely different color of jade. Our main focus is up in Kutcho, it's right up in Dease Lake, which is one of the last towns in British Columbia. And our mine is about 120 kilometers straight east into the bush. That's kind of where all the main mining activity is for jade in British Columbia, all along this trail. That's where you can see the Polar Mine, Provencher, Wolverine, King, all these different mines in that area. And ours is at the very end. We call that mountain range the Kutcho Mountain Range. And it's kind of the mecca of jade. It's these massive, massive deposits that, we could mine for the next 100 years. So Kutcho is kind of our main focus. That's where we have the biggest deposits of jade. Yeah, not too far away is King. We used to own the Polar Mine, but we've since sold, and we're still kind of loosely affiliated with the company that's running it, as well as Ogden. And so Ogden's a little bit southeast of Dease Lake. That was, like Nikki was saying, it produces that really nice rich green jade. It also has some light green, really beautiful deposits. That's also been sold to the company that's mining Polar as well.
You can still spot Canadian jade. It usually has that black in it.
Are they graphite inclusions? Is that the black that's in the Canadian nephrite?
I always thought it was the high concentrations of iron that kind of gives the black dots, but it could be, some of them could be graphite.
The neat thing about the one, like the Polar Mine, how it became famous is it's got colored more by chromium. When we sent it in for testing, it had a higher concentration of chromium, which was giving it that bright green color.
So, Nikki, let's talk about your dad. How did he become one of the most famous names in jade today? How did he become Kirk Makepeace?
Very intelligent and hardworking.
It's nice to see someone so driven, so motivated, and so passionate about jade?
I think he had to be. Like his stories of their mining conditions when they first started, because we're already so remote. We're like, 120 kilometers east of the closest town. If you can even call these like much of a town, it's just very small. A few hundred people there, just a gas station. And
Wow.
They didn't have any communication really with the outside world. They would just go in, it was hard work. They'd leave their families and take off for the summer. It was a short season. They could only mine from June, kind of late June until September, until the snow kicked them out again. So,
but you also get snow in August.
Yeah, you can get snow any given day up there. So they didn't have the luxuries that we do now, right? Like we go up and we talk about how we're roughing it, but we have, satellite TV. Pretty soon we're going to get Starlink and, we can video call home and stuff, warm showers. So it's a lot. The living conditions have improved dramatically from when he started. So yeah, kudos to him for sticking it out.
Yeah.
Matt, when you go out to the mine, how long of a time do you stay out there?
I usually, until my wife makes me come home. I usually go up for give or take about 2 weeks in and then come out. But our guys are working every single day when we're in full swing, because it is such a short season, right? So you can't really, every minute's so valuable up there. So you're just go. Wake up 6, have breakfast out the door, mining 10 hours a day, 7 days a week. And it's a lot brighter up there in the summer, right? So, the days are a lot longer. And for a certain part of the season, the sun doesn't even really go down. It just kind of dips a little bit for like 3 hours and then it's back up again. So
oh my gosh.
Yeah.
That's so crazy. I guess you guys can see the northern lights up there and stuff too.
Yeah. Towards the end of the summer, we start to see them. It's beautiful. Yeah.
It's amazing.
The amount of stars up in the sky is incredible.
I want to go. I'll get me a hard hat and I'll come be a jade miner. How's that? This might be a good time to talk about the pause in mining that's been going on. Since when did that start?
British Columbia has been progressing a lot with First Nations relationships. And what they actually did was sign the United Nations Declaration for Indigenous Rights. It was an act that came out from the UN, and BC signed on to it in 2018 or 2017. And then since then, the First Nations have kind of really held the government accountable for, improving how much say they have in what happens in their lands, right? So jade mining kind of got caught in the crosshairs of all this. And that was due to a reality TV show that, they try to make things really dramatic on the show, right? And so a lot of it isn't true. We all kind of got painted with that same brush. So these people are watching it saying, hey, on the First Nations, we're like, hey, we need a little bit of improvements here in how things are done in our territory. So we have since been negotiating with the First Nations. We have great, we're all getting along really well, and we're all working with the government as well for reform. And so it's progressing. It's just, whenever you're dealing with the government, it takes a bit of time for changes to happen. So we're almost there. There's light at the end of the tunnel, and we're hoping to be back full swing for next season. But these past couple of years have been a bit of a pause on jade mining.
And that's certainly affected the supply, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And for this to happen, there couldn't have been a better time for a reset or, slow things down and make improvements because of COVID, right? And jade's highly dependent on tourism, right? So you have all these tourist shops and stores that, people, when they're walking by, they buy pendants and jewelry and carvings. And when tourism came to a halt with COVID, there wasn't much jade being moved. So factories didn't have a big demand for jade, but now things are ramping up again. Factories are starting to run low on supply, and they're reaching out to us. And we have a bit of supply left over from prior years of mining. So, we're kind of weathering the storm and hoping that, like I said, we can get back to it in next season so that we can meet the demand.
But we're very low on.
Yeah, low on A grade. A grade goes, it sells so fast, right? Everyone wants A grade. It's, for the amount of jade, when we're mining jade, our retention rate, the jade that we pull out, is only probably about 5%. Like 3 to 5% of the jade that we find is marketable. So out of that 3 to 5%, maybe 10% is A grade, right? So if we find,
oh my gosh.
Think about it. If we find 100 jade boulders, only three to five of them are marketable jade. It's extremely difficult to mine it, right? And we have to go through a lot of resources. Fuel's gotten crazy. And plus the remoteness of our camp, it's really hard getting supplies in. So yeah, it's really extremely difficult to extract.
So an increase in cost of mining, an increase in demand, a decrease of supply. And then I'm sure this probably doesn't get talked about enough, but there is an ethical standard with Canadian mining that I think should set it apart from other sources. And that's that you guys, you have laborers who are being paid reasonable wages, I'm sure, at the very least reasonable.
Oh, yeah.
And, that type of quality of life that is being given to these people, these mine workers, like that needs to be reflected in the value of jade as well.
That's a great point.
Yeah, it's hard to get employees to go up there.
Sure, because they have to. Well, I don't know. You get the right guy who wants to leave his family. He's like, wait, from June to September without my wife, sign me up.
Our husbands, my husband and my sister's husband, Paul and Matt, go up. So we're hoping they want to come home.
You're like, don't give them ideas.
Yeah, you get homesick. It's that's probably one of the harder parts about the job is, when you have young kids and stuff running around, is leaving them. We give up a lot to be able to bring this jade down to the market.
Honestly, with all transparency, as someone who sells jadeite and sees nephrite in the market, knowing how incredible nephrite is and the kind of effort that goes into mining it, I definitely think it should be valued higher. I would like to see it valued higher now.
Prices are going to go up, like with rough material and finished products.
I think it's worth it for you guys to have a quality of life for this material to be one of the highest regarded gemstones in all of history.
Yeah.
It should be treated with that kind of respect. And I think that the miners, the protectors, the sellers of this stone, I think you guys should also, get that respect and get that value for your time, for your efforts, for the material itself. Sometimes people have this misconception that jade is cheap or inexpensive, and it's truly an incredible stone. Even when it does sell for inexpensive prices, it's not cheap. It's still rare. It's still the toughest gemstone in the world, the most historically significant gemstone in the world. And the sale of it impacts families like y'all's and companies like what you guys have in British Columbia. So it's important that that's taken seriously in the market.
Jade's been sold for too cheap.
Well, for those of you watching who've invested in BC Jade, the value's going up, right?
Yeah. Even the manufacturing of it, like everyone's raising their rates and their costs, and it's going up significantly. So.
Well, jade is such a hard stone to work with. It's not an easy thing to learn how to carve. Like, if someone wants to learn how to carve, you're not going to start learning on jade. It's so tough to work with.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, all our cutting costs we were told this year, they're all going up 50%. So for all our products.
Everybody needs to get on this. Buy some jade. Show some love to Jade West and the jade industry as a whole. Show some love to this incredible stone. Kind of speaking of cutting, I know that cutters buy rough from you guys, right?
Yeah, and jademine.com for finished goods. Where Matt's more of a contact for rough jade.
Yeah, so you can reach out like info@jademine or my email, jadewestmatt@gmail.com. And yeah, just send us messages and what you'd be looking for, and we can help accommodate. We still have like a few hundred tons probably, or 100 tons or so of rough jade of all sizes. So
a lot of people that watch my channel are they're jade collectors. Some of them are cutters, some of them are rock hounds. Can you kind of give them some insight and some advice on identifying jade rough if it is BC jade, like kind of tells ways that they can know that it's real, ways that they can know that it's jade, and if there are simulants of it, could you mention those? What's
funny, and I think a lot of it was because of the TV show. Everyone we get so many calls. Like honestly, it's weekly. People coming in, and I found this at a garage sale, or it's in my old grandmother's on their kitchen table. This jade figure or something.
Yeah.
And majority of the time, like there's a huge difference between low grade and high grade jade. First of all, and also whether it's jade or not. So a lot of the times it's serpentine or some other greenstone. And I always tell them, okay, if it's jade, if it's a little stone or cobble or something, put it on the ground, hit it with a hammer as hard as you can. Right? And if it blows up into pieces, it's not jade.
Does serpentine have the iron inclusions, the little black dots?
Yeah, serpentine is very iron rich. So it's very similar, but the thing with serpentine is more of like a luster, oily look to it a lot of the times, but it's also a lot more brittle. right? So that's why I say hit it with a hammer. It doesn't have the hardness that jade does.
Yeah. And when we find our jade, it's on serpentine hills because serpentine is a contact. And so you see all this green rock everywhere, but the green rock you're seeing is serpentine. The jade boulders aren't green from the outside when they're in situ. Like, it kind of, a jade boulder kind of has a neat oyster shell look to it, that if it's not been in the river or anything, it can have a thick white rind, it can have a nice red rind, but not unless it's been in the glaciers or polished by glaciers, or in the rivers or polished by glaciers. It's not going to look green. The boulders we have, you don't see any jade at all. So when someone finds a piece of green rock, typically it's not going to be jade unless you cut into it. From the outside, it's not going to be green.
That's amazing advice.
The way we find it at the mine is you look for these big serpentine belts, and you look at the mountain range. It almost looks like green sand, like down the slide of the side of a mountain slope.
It's nice and soft.
It's nice and soft, and then around the edges of that, right? Because that'll be the serpentine. So that's the main, mineral in jade. And then you go to the side of it, and where the serpentine slopes end, you usually find these jade deposits, because that's where the serpentine would have combined with contact rock, right? Like a limestone or rhodingite. And that's where you'll find these deposits. Yeah, that's how kind of jade's discovered, right? You see those serpentine belts, and around there you're most likely going to find jade deposits. And the other way, so there's two types of mining. There's mineral mining or hard rock mining, where we just go right at those deposits and we work at them with excavators and wire saws, and we try and almost quarry them out. And the other type of mining is called placer mining, and that is more looking for alluvial boulders. So we know where the jade rich areas are, and we'll go to the base of the mountain and kind of till. So we'll just dig with excavators right underneath a whole bunch of jade deposits up in the hillside, and then we'll find alluvial boulders down there that have been glacially ripped away from the in situ and moved down or slid down the hill or been carried away. And when you're looking at these boulders, sometimes it's really hard to tell if it's jade or just another stone. So we go at it with rock hammers, and we'll try and get a little chip off of it, right? And then you can see into the stone, and you can see if it's jade or if it's just any other stone.
So you're not moving a lot of earth to mine jade, really?
No, not at all. Not
That's
nearly
excellent.
what they do with gold mining or any other type of mining.
Right.
Yeah, our environmental footprint it's so small. We're not even a blip on the map compared to other types of mining.
I think what's important, one of our most common questions is, so in Canada, we grade our jade A, B, and C, where Jadeite grades at type A, type B, and C. That confuses so many people. So if I say it's a B grade bangle, oh shoot, it's been treated. No, it hasn't been treated. It's the natural quality. Nephrite, green nephrite's very rarely treated. I've seen some bangles that have fractures and they filled it because the dye will absorb into the fracture and then they seal it. But that's really it. You're not going to change the color of a green bangle by dye. With its fibrous structure, dye will just not absorb like it does into other stones. So yeah.
Is nephrite really ever treated?
I've heard of some, but I very rarely see it. And I've heard some white nephrite being treated more to get more white. If you heat nephrite, it's going to go brown and brittle. You're not going to heat it up. There's so much fake on the market being called nephrite jade. If you type in jade or Canadian jade beads, you're going to see most is serpentine or most is dyed quartzite. Very rarely you'll find a Canadian jade. It's so frustrating. I've gone online and being like, just so you know, this is actually not BC jade.
I think I'm inspired for another video.
And also, my dad always hates that we sometimes call it BC jade because type B and C,
right, because B plus C jade.
Yeah, I'm guilty of calling it.
The market calls it BC
Yeah.
jade. So it's hard to change that. That's what they want to call it. It stands for British Columbia. It's all innocent.
A lot of people don't know also, though, where British Columbia is.
That it's Canada. Right.
But yeah, it's a daily thing. It's oh, well, you sold me grade B. I'm well, it's grade B, but it's not treated. It's natural. It's just carbon grade. Now I'm trying to call it carbon grade versus grade B, just because if I label it grade B, someone's going to think it's treated.
For everybody, just for clarification for everyone watching, you have two types of jade. You have nephrite and jadeite. And then in jadeite, you have treated and natural. And the treated designations are B jade, C jade, and B plus C jade. But that type of treatment designation only refers to jadeite, not nephrite. In the realm of nephrite, A, B, C, is it A, B, C, and D?
D is so low.
D is so low. So it's really A, B, and C.
Yeah.
So in nephrite, A, B, and C jade refers to quality, not treatment category. So B jade in nephrite is not the same as B jade in jadeite.
Yeah, and nor C grade is such low grade that it's not used. It's for nuggets and tumbled stones or nookshooks that we make.
Oh, interesting. So you're mostly going to see A and B on the market.
Yeah.
And I think it's something to be said too, like as someone who studied gemology, it should be known to the public that there isn't universal grading terminology for colored stones. Typically, there isn't really one for any particular colored stone. And so the way that like Jade West assigns their A, B, and C qualities might actually differ from how another supplier might designate, right? So like there could be companies who say, oh, this is A quality jade, right, but it might not be as nice as what Jade West is offering.
Yeah, and sometimes we do classify some as AA, and now some people are going AAA, and it's just like,
where does it end?
Yeah.
Where does it end?
Yeah. A lot of the time when a company that's not familiar with jade will say it's AA when it's carbon grade.
Right. In jadeite, we use kind of descriptor words to categorize the quality, typically of color. It might refer to the color and translucency, but like in the case of imperial jade would refer to jadeite that is like the greenest, the most translucent, the most even texture, and it's kind of hitting everything. But then below that, you kind of, you have like your spinach jade or your icy jades and stuff like that. And those words might refer to color, it might refer to translucency, but not necessarily both. And kind of just, it refers more to the variety of styles and different, like appearances of jade. Quality, I think, is always a little bit hard to assess in a stone like jade, where you have a huge variety in appearance, where you might have, like, for instance, a color that might be more translucent. Is that a higher or lower quality than a more desirable color, but less translucency?
Yeah. And it's kind of, it also depends on which market you're selling to.
Oh, yeah.
Right? Like some markets don't like the chrome flecks, the little chrome specks in the jade, whereas other markets love it. Right. So the market might say it's B grade, where the other market might say it's an A grade. Also, another example is that Ogden, that really rich forest green Ogden that we have. We consider it A grade when it's uniform in color and structurally sound, no cracks. We'll give it A grade. But some places, China, Southeast Asia, they don't like that darkness of jade. They want that apple green, right? So they might say, no, it's a low grade, right? So you got to be cognizant of which market you're selling to and kind of how you're grading it. So.
I think for the customer, it's important to remember that you should never buy any stone just based on the grade. And I refer to quality grade, not treatment grade, because that is kind of a source of confusion. But base your purchase on the appearance, on the quality, and then also like the seller. Is the seller trustworthy? Is it a good company? Do they pay their people well, or do they not? Right? Because that some people are like, oh, but I can get it so much cheaper. Okay, but like, why? Have you asked yourself why it's cheaper? You know what I mean? And so I think it's so important for the customer to really be conscious of their decision, especially when buying a natural material, something like jade. This is not a renewable resource.
I like the inclusions personally, like the different textures and patterns in our jade, because it gives a character, right?
Love it.
The jade has its own fingerprint.
Otherwise, if it's just like one, it's neat when you find that really uniform green color, but some of it almost looks like it's plastic, right? Whereas no two jade pieces, when they have inclusions, are ever going to be the same. So you kind of make that your own. When you buy a bangle or something, right? Buy it, not, have it, make sure it's structurally sound, but, if there's colors you like or inclusions that you like more than some other part of the world, buy it for yourself.
That's the appeal of buying a natural material.
We're going to be in Tucson as well.
We're starting the 22nd Street Show this year for the first time.
Whoa! Are you only going to be there, or are you going to still do GJX?
Still be at the GJX that first time.
Having the 22nd Street one will just open it up.
And we'll have a different variation of products too.
Yeah.